Hey guys, MASKED here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so another EZA is coming, and so of course another EZA team building guide is here from your boy. So of course my man, the mascot of my channel, my brand, we love him, the SAIYAN, finally getting his EZA on global. So hyped I was when he got his EZA on JP, and it was really cool to see the fact that, like, when the news dropped that he was getting an EZA, so many people tagged me on Twitter, so it's kind of cool to have that, like, you know, brand association. But it's finally coming to global, so it's a standard 30 stage EZA. So obviously you can't stun past stage 5, can't lower attack past stage 15, and then you can't seal from stage 20 onwards. And then the special modifiers, this is the main thing you have to focus on when you're building your team, is once you get to stage 20, STR, physical, and all extreme units get an 80% damage reduction. So that means you can bring units who fit into those typings if they're really good tanks, because they'll still be good defensively, but they just won't do any damage. So you obviously want to focus your team around being super AGL, tech, and int. Although obviously, because SAIYAN is tech, you don't want to bring a ton of AGL units. But yeah, standard 30 stages, you get the whole thing done, you get all the medals, you get a bunch of orbs, pretty much enough to rainbow a unit from scratch, and then you get 11 type Kais, 30 stones, and then obviously if you complete all the missions along the way, which as long as you're doing it with a revenge team, you should be able to, you get 34 stones as well. So yeah, revenge is the name of the game, or the name of the category. So here we go. As you can see, there's only one actual category leader, which is the AGL transforming Bardock. He has been back on a couple of banners now, so hopefully you guys do have him. But in this guide I have covered off a couple of different units that you can use instead. Some of them will restrict your team building a little bit based on their leader skill. So obviously Bardock is the go-to for running any units on the actual revenge category. So as always, we will jump into my top picks as well as some honourable mentions. And as I always say with these guides, if there's any units you think I missed or we should have talked about more, let us know in the comments down below. So obviously AGL Bardock is the revenge leader. 130 HP, 170 attack and defense. He raises defense on super. He can't transform early because you're not fighting a Wicked Bloodline enemy, so you'll only be able to transform him if you get to turn 4. Maybe in the later stages, once you get to like closer to stage 30, or if you choose to go beyond stage 30, you will be able to get to the 4th turn, and then of course once he transforms, you get a built-in ability to crit and dodge. So even with no dupes, he does become much better once you transform. So if you are running him, that will definitely help you out in those later stages. Or if you have to run one of the other leaders with maybe a slightly lower leader skill, then bringing him as a friend, he's still going to do really well. Obviously he does better not being in slot 1, so you can get that defense raise on super attack, and he will take a fair bit of damage if he gets supered, but he can definitely be very effective, as well as obviously being the best possible leader. So next up we have this Trunks, the transforming Trunks. So he's a future saga leader, which a lot of the units that we're going to talk about are actually in, or he's a super types 120 leader. So he's actually a very decent substitute as the leader, because any super types you're bringing who are not on revenge or future, if you are using him, are still getting the 120 buff. And as we saw from the intro table at the beginning, we don't want to be using extreme units, so he's a very solid unit to bring. He's not super good on turn 1, very basic on turn 1, but as soon as he transforms into the Super Saiyan Trunks, then obviously he's very solid. He stacks defense with super and stacks it quite quickly as well. He raises defense only by 20%, but it always feels like when you use this guy, as soon as he gets off like one super, he just starts tanking incredibly well. So I think he's probably the best choice for substitute leader. And then even if you're not using him as the leader, he's a good option to bring on the team, because the team is going to be largely Saiyan based. So obviously the more units you can bring that have links like Prepared for Battle, Super Saiyan, they're all going to spread across the board, make it a little bit easier, make the team more powerful overall. So the next one we have up is the int version of the Super Saiyan Future Trunks. Obviously with his EZA, his leader skill is super types, key 3 and 100% to stats. So again, a little bit lower than the previous Trunks, but if this is your you know, if you have this guy and he's going to be your best option for a leader, he's still going to be pretty good, because just like the Tech Trunks, he's worth bringing on the team even if you're not bringing him as a leader, because not only is he int, so he's got type advantage as well as being in the advantageous category. He is a nuker who creates his own orbs. You're not fighting a Realm of Gods category enemy, so he doesn't get extra like rainbow orbs, but he changes STR to int, and then it doesn't actually matter what type of orbs he picks up in order to get his buff. So it's just per key sphere obtained. So even if he only changes a couple of orbs, but there's a ton of orbs of a different color, then he's going to do really well. He does immense damage, greatly lowers defense, which not really that applicable. But he does also raise superclass allies attack by 30% for 1 turn. So you can put him in slot 1, pick up a whole bunch of orbs, and he's going to tank well, deal big damage, and then buff the rest of the rotation's attack as well. So I feel like he is a must-include unit on this team, whether you're using him as the leader or not. So then we go on to the Int Mai. She is a Time Traveler's 120 leader, or Int types 3 key and 70%. A lot of the units we're going to talk about are Time Travelers. In fact, both of these Trunkses and the Bardock are all on Time Travelers, although obviously you would use one of them as the leads instead. But you see what I mean? There's a lot of crossover between Time Travelers and Revenge. So even though you can't stun, she's going to be very good. She does provide the 2 key and 40% stat buff to other Time Traveler units. Plus she has type advantage, so she's not going to get absolutely massacred. She will take quite a bit of damage from a super, especially in the later stages. But yeah, I will definitely be bringing her on my team as a support, because obviously I can run what I would assume will be the best team. I can show that on screen at the end, as well as maybe a couple of other potential builds. But yeah, definitely going to bring her. I did put the AGL Mai in here as well as kind of like a last resort. Definitely can't use her as a leader, but she gives all allies 3 key. She's only going to be giving AGL types a support buff, so if you have got the Bardock, then she obviously helps when she floats into slot 3. But she's definitely nowhere near as good as the Int one, especially because she's AGL, so she's got type disadvantage. But she's kind of like an honourable mention, I guess, if you don't have the Int Mai. Then we have the Tech Ultimate Gohan. So, yep, he is on the Revenge category. One of the best units in the game. Very, very good tank. So, there's not really a huge amount we need to say about this guy. If you have him, he probably is worth bringing on the team, even though his links aren't super great. But yeah, he's going to be very, very good on this team. Tanking very well. And obviously he stacks up his attack and defense. You probably aren't going to get to the 5th turn to transform unless you go way past stage 30. But if you do, then it's just going to be GG once he transforms. So I do think he's worth bringing. You might need to think carefully about the other units you bring and who you're going to run on rotation with him, or make sure you're bringing units that provide key support, just because his links can be a bit wonky. Or even pairing him up with units like the Spirit Sword Trunks, for example. Even though they don't link amazingly well, he changes orbs, so obviously that's going to help out, because you can change a whole bunch of orbs and then just pick them all up with Gohan. So then we have the AGL Trunks and Mai. I haven't included many AGL units, but these guys are really good because they can do a pretty solid amount of damage, and then as long as you're running a Future Trunks or Mai on the team, you can use their active skill on turn 3, which does a huge amount of damage, guaranteed crit. You can't stun, obviously, in the EZA. They do reduce their own defense by half, though, when you do this, so you want to be careful that you use it and then kind of put them in a slot where they're not going to take hits, because losing a bunch of their defense plus the type disadvantage means that they are going to get hit pretty hard overall. But yeah, obviously you're not going to have a Super Saiyan Blue on the team, and you're not fighting a Future Saga enemy, or a Goku Black or Zamasu. So they're not getting their full passive. I think they're more of an honourable mention than a must pick, but the fact that their active skill is going to be really easy to get in this event, just to do one big shot of damage. In the early stages, probably the first, I don't know, 15, maybe even 20. Once you get to turn 3 and pop that active skill, you potentially just kill him, because you get a guaranteed crit, so you don't need to worry about type disadvantage. So they could definitely be helpful for people who need that extra unit to fill the last slot. Then we have the Kid Goku. So Kid Goku's on Revenge. I feel like he's a bit more of an honourable mention as well, because with his links, he's not going to link up super well with the rest of the team, so he might need some key support. But Kid Goku is really good for easy A's, because obviously in an easy A you can't heal, and his passive and active skill don't have a turn restriction. So if you get blasted in turn 1 and then this guy comes onto rotation on turn 2 and you're below 59% HP, you can use his active skill to do a nice big bit of free damage, and then his follow-up super, both of them are guaranteed crits during that turn. So he is very effective for putting out damage, as long as you can actually super with him, which is unfortunately the problem based on his links. It's one of the biggest problems with this unit in general, is he's really, really good, but he only works on specific teams where he's got like other Dragon Ball Saga units around him. But he is definitely a good pick. Then we have Super Saiyan 3 Bardock. He does need to super attack first, otherwise he doesn't really have any defense. He provides an attack buff to all allies if you're below 70% HP, which again, because you can't heal in easy A's, that could be pretty easy to get quite early on. And he does do immense damage. You're not going to be able to seal later on in the event, but he does pretty well, and obviously he links up fairly well with all the other units. The fact that he has prepared for battle and over in a flash is pretty good, although I don't think we're bringing any other over in a flash units, but he is very solid. Plus he's another one of these units that's on time travelers as well, so going to be getting all that support if you are bringing the Int Mai. Then we have Android 16. He's an honorable mention. He's like a last resort honorable mention, because just like the Kid Goku, his links are not good for this team whatsoever. But he has decent defense, and so he's not going to take huge amounts of damage from Masked Saiyan. That's kind of the only reason you would bring him. I would honestly, if you need to fill that last slot, like you only have 5 units and you have to bring this guy, just float him in the 3rd spot, and he's just there to finish off the team, and he's not going to take a ton of damage and get you killed in the 3rd slot, because other than that he's really not very good. But the revenge category, a little bit limited when it comes to super int units, so I thought I'd throw him in here. And then strangely enough, Bota Magetta is also on revenge, I guess because of their whole strategy with like him covering Magetta's ears. I guess the whole point is that this form is to kind of get revenge on Vegeta, but again, don't fit super well on the team in terms of links, but they do give themselves key, so that helps them to actually be able to super, in which they do raise defense, and then they do guard when their HP is, when your HP is below 80%. So they're not going to take a huge amount of damage, especially if you super attack first, but again, I feel like they are a last resort unit. And then finally we have the Int Ultimate Gohan. It's unfortunate that he's an honourable mention, but he's quite old now. Like, his defense is not very good, even post-Easy A, but he'll link up okay with the Tech Gohan if you are bringing him. So he could be a good pick, because you put Tech Gohan in slot 1, put this guy in slot 2, and then they'll be able to do decent damage. And obviously, ideally, Tech Gohan, you just tank all the hits with him. So he's kind of an honourable mention if you're bringing the Tech Gohan. Otherwise, I wouldn't necessarily bring him. But again, if you need to fill that final spot on the team, he's good to use. And then the last 2 honourable mentions I wanted to talk about just stem from Bardock's leader skill. So if you are using Bardock, remember his secondary leader skill is low-class warriors. So these guys, even though they're not on revenge, so they're not going to be doing tons of extra damage, they fit under the leader skill, and they are super int, and they provide 30% attack and defensive support for all super type allies. So they are going to be pretty solid in this event as well. And then I also included the free-to-play int Farsha, just because she comes under his leader skill, and she has a built-in chance to dodge. And she changes orbs when there's a Bardock on rotation. So again, if you're running the AGL Bardock, otherwise you just wouldn't bring her, I wouldn't think. But yeah, I thought those 2 could be decent honourable mentions just to take advantage of the secondary part of Bardock's leader skill. So there you go. As you can see, like revenge, we didn't really talk about AGL LR Trunks. He's really only good against multiple opponents, and he's got type disadvantage. Trunks and Mai, I guess they could be okay in terms of defense because of the dodging, but if we go back to the list, they are an STR unit, so obviously their damage is massively nerfed. So we didn't really talk about any STR or physical units, and as you can see, we kind of covered every TUR who I think would be worth mentioning. This Trunks needs a future Gohan, who we don't have. I guess this free-to-play Ultimate Gohan could be okay if you don't have this one. But yeah, I think out of the units that are decent enough to bring, we covered everybody. So let me know down below if you think we missed anyone, and let me show you guys a couple of quick example teams here. Okay, so here's a couple of example teams that I threw together. This one here is the one that I probably will use. As you can see, it mentions or features most of the top units that we mentioned. Not really much else to have to say about this. I feel like this is probably the best build for this, and it should be nice and easy. So moving on to this one, this is the build that I made with the Trunks as lead. So obviously future types characters are getting more of a buff, but super types across the board get a 120. I included a couple of free-to-play options, like we got this Trunks instead of the Spirit Sword one, but obviously the Spirit Sword one would be better overall. And then of course we got the Gohan combo for one of the rotations. I included this Bardock. He's like a free-to-play from the World Tournament. He's not very good nowadays, honestly. Like, he has no defense, but for most of these teams, you should try and bring a friend Bardock. You should normally see when EZAs come out, people will be setting them as their friends, so you should be able to find some. So obviously he will link well with him. And then Mai is on there for the support. I feel like most people probably have at least one copy of her by now. And then for the other example, this is definitely the worst out of the three. I would honestly say that overall this team is kind of bad, but would still be able to beat the whole event. So we've got it's a full super int team. We've got this Trunks as the lead, so 100% across the board. We've got the Kid Goku, which is why I included this Gohan. So we didn't talk about him at all in the unit rundown because he's not on the right category, but he is super int, so he'll still do okay. And obviously he's the 50% super int support unit, so he'll help out units like the Kid Goku, the 16, and the Boa Magetta, who don't really fit into the team very well in terms of links. And then obviously this Bardock would be there to be a good support for the friend Bardock. So I would probably run like the Trunks and the Kid Goku together, and then have this Super Saiyan 3 Bardock with the friend Bardock, and then have the other ones floating. So whilst I say this team is probably the worst one, this team could absolutely get it done, but this will be the one that I'm using. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. As always, let me know any units that you think we should have talked about down below. Good luck with the EZA, and very much looking forward to using Saiyan fully Extreme Z Awakened. So I've had him at level 10 links for a while. It's going to be good times. So make sure you guys smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links in the description for the Discord, my merch, all that good stuff. And I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.